This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand dawning, great rising, Cleveland, Ohio, and the rest of planet Earth. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest today is a Detroit native who recently came into the Cleveland area. Her name is CocoaWeaponry. She's a multifaceted chameleon whose work spans creative, professional, and spiritual domains. As an author and poet, Coco gives voice to the untold stories of resilience, faith, and personal growth. Her writing reflects a deep commitment to truth, healing, and empowerment. With a heart for service, she serves as a modeling pose to coach esteemed designers and photographers. As a youth mentor, she uses experience to guiding young people through life's transitions with compassion and wisdom. In her role as an operations manager, she brings strategic thinking and organizational excellence to every project. That's quite a resume there, Coco. Welcome to Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation.
All right. So in the interest of transparency, I will reveal to our listening audience that I met you at an event that was held on St. Clair at a location there, an event that was sponsored by my good friend Sophie. Absolutely. And we had conversation on the sidewalk, and you told me about your experience as a police officer and the work that you are engaged in right now. And as I was listening to that, I was thinking to myself, this needs to get out. So that is my motivation for having you here. I like to give human interest stories to our public so that they realize that we're not just sitting around on our thumbs and doing nothing about the things that we see in life. So off the bat, let's just talk about you being in Detroit and tell us about your life there and what precipitated your move to Cleveland.
My move to Cleveland is at this time back and forth. I'm very attracted to the artist scene. I'm very attracted to the youth outreach that is going on within the city of Cleveland at this time. I am a platform poet, professional poet and spoken word artist. I've traveled all over the world doing that. That's just something I really enjoy doing. That's a passion. But even more of a passion was that of assisting and supporting our young people. Having a career within law enforcement, I had to get from behind the barrel and get in front of the barrel with the young people. There were a lot of young ones who were underprivileged and lacked opportunities because of what is being seen not only in Detroit, but in Cleveland as well. In the school system, a lot of the artistic and creative programs have been taken out. Yes. So that transition to working with the Resident Youth Council program, assisting Kosowa Burris, as well as Arlene Robinson, who was the director.
Okay. So I want to start with your name. I'm assuming that it was probably not what you were born with. And I'm sure that there's an inspiration and a story behind that. So tell us how you became CocoaWeaponry.
CocoaWeaponry was a gift of a name. I started writing, and a lot of people would say, your pen is so lethal. And my nickname was always Coco Brown, but that was not had anything to do professionally. Once I got into it, the guy was like, man, her linguistic is a weapon. And so he said, this is CocoaWeaponry. And that's how it began, from a stage performance to an audience that was not receptive.
Yeah. And
the name began.
Okay. Well, Coco Brown is a bit redundant, don't you think?
Hey.
It's interesting too how we get these names. I mean, in my situation, someone named my band and they thought that the Vince Robinson Quartet was too boring, so they gave me Jazz Poets, and I ran with it. Someone else that I know, his name is Elijah Gilmore, and he's been a guest, and he will be a future guest because we're working together musically. As a matter of fact, he was there that night that I met you and we had a conversation after your conversation. But he
How
talked about
extraordinary.
how he became Tribe of Eli. And again, somebody put that on him and he said, "Oh, yeah, that sounds good." And now he's got a book called The Book of Eli. So
Mm.
interesting. So
Very.
you lived in Detroit and for whatever reason, you decided you wanted to be a police officer. What was behind that decision?
It's complicated to think about and complicated to really articulate through that. Just wanting to help, having so many different voids in my life, and wanting to be a part of something that could really make a difference. And I thought that could be it.
Mm. So when you got into it, did it meet your expectations in terms of what you would be able to accomplish as a law enforcement officer?
It did. It honestly did. The downside was the emotional detachment from feeling. And that's something that I enjoy. I enjoy feeling, being happy, being sad. You have to take the emotion out when you are in law enforcement because you have to have a specific disposition when it comes to guilty and non-guilty persons.
Hmm. Interesting. I just watched a video a few moments ago of a young lady who had been confronted by the police. And when they rolled up on her, I guess she was asleep in her car. And so they made her roll the window down. They made her, present her hands because they didn't want to be threatened by her and all that. And it turned out that the woman was homeless. She didn't have anywhere to go. And, the way that they were questioning her, they were treating her like a criminal. And it was obvious that she was in a state and a space of need. And, the conversation was just so, it was just derogatory, and then it made me feel a certain kind of way. It made me not want to finish watching the video because I could clearly see what was going on. But on the other hand, I do know that folks do have a certain level of compassion in their hearts, and that's part of the reason that they decide that they want to go into that profession. Just reflecting on a program that I was witness to a few years ago. It was a ride-along program, and it involved Cleveland police cadets, and they would go to different locations and have interaction with the public, and so folks could get to know them and they could get to know people. But I just remember meeting with a couple of the cadets, and it was like, yeah, they were committed to being able to make a difference. But I also know, just based on conversations with people who have been in law enforcement and attorneys, because I interviewed Jim Hardiman a few weeks ago, and he was just talking about how, in the process of being in that profession, sometimes you get jaded. And being disconnected from your emotions, I think, is a major thing, because when you, as that police officer, and you being a woman, you roll up on that sister that's sleeping in the car, you know exactly what's going on, and you might respond to it a little bit differently than your European counterpart.
Definitely. That is so true. Not all have the same disposition depending on demographics and I hate to, I don't get into the dynamics of race and things of that nature, but they do play a major role in the attitude and the line of questioning and the approach that you take to those that you see that could appear to be doing or being innocent. So I'm neutral in that aspect as of now. And to understand a person means everything, because you're never understood the way that you understand. Law enforcement officers, attorneys, all of these, they get a bad rep because of one or two persons' hearsay or their experience. Not all are the same. So yes, you would take into account where they are, the time of day, male or female, tinted windows, untinted windows, and what is the person's demeanor. You have to take and those are the things that the public does not understand or know or privy to about when approaching a situation.
Yes. Well, we can go back to the origins of police officers in this country, and we can make the connection with the slave catchers and all of that. It's a very complicated web, so to speak. I think it's necessary to have those forces in place to protect people. But sometimes I do think they get a little carried away. And when you look at police departments across the country, some of them are extremely militarized and they have all that excessive force. But the bottom line, at least to me, is as someone who observes this, is sometimes it's really more about protecting the property and the interests of the wealthy and not so much the common everyday man, which brings us to the dilemma that we're facing here in this city, which we talked about on that evening, and that is the appropriation of dollars for public safety at the expense of providing dollars for art, and those programs that you just mentioned get cut out of the school. So
yes, indeed. I had the opportunity to be present at the community meeting at Kovacic Center on St. Clair in Cleveland, and had the opportunity to be in the room with greatness, those who are heavily involved with making a difference. Did not know that Parks and Recreation included the cemeteries. The cemeteries get a lot of maintenance and manicuring and tree trimming and all of those wonderful things at thousands of dollars a month. We have public parks that are destitute. Why aren't they being taken care of? There is a master plan that we heard about, spoke on. $8 million is on the table with Parks and Recreation. The tentative is 10 to 15 years for it to be completed. Why should it take that long? We can get a contractor to do something, go in there and make these parks available to our young people because they don't have much to do. They're roaming the streets. It's not going to be a one human person effort to make the change, because that change will be done divinely, heavenly. Of course, I believe that, but we all within the community can contribute what we have to support the community and being better. There are things that we need to know about, things that we need to be involved in just to make a little bit of difference. And it doesn't have to involve the political elements or this or aligning this. It's just about people coming together and understanding what's on the table. $8 million is a lot of money. People don't see that money in a lifetime. And you mean to tell me within a 10 to 15 year span, most of the parks will have received some of that money to be upgraded for our young people to have something to look forward to.
Yes.
If we start billing, asking persons to pay to come into parks, then there's an upset within the community, because those types of things should be free of charge for the local neighborhoods as well. It's a win and lose, but then it's a lose and win situation, because you have to implement certain structures of order in order to have things done appropriately and maintained.
Yes.
It can happen.
Well, the bottom line is that you have to be willing to invest in people, and as you just stated, it seems like they're doing more for the dead than they are for the living. We're going to talk a little bit more about that dynamic, but we're also going to get into a conversation about your craft. I took the liberty of watching a few videos that I've seen online, and I have to tell you that you do have a gift when it comes to words. So the brother that gave you the moniker CocoaWeaponry, he was absolutely on point. This is 95.9 FM WOVU, Cleveland's urban alternative.
You gotta pop out and show.
When it comes to media, everybody says they're different. But WOVU 95.9 FM, we don't just say it, we live it.
They not like us.
We are more than a radio station. We are a movement.
They not like us.
A platform for truth, culture, and power. Rooted right here in the heart of Cleveland.
They not like us.
Black owned, black operated, black located. We don't just serve the community. We are the voice of the community.
They not like us.
WOVU is where the mic meets the mission, where voices rise, stories matter, and change happens.
They not like us.
Unfiltered, unbought, unapologetic. We're local with a global vision.
They not like us.
Mission driven 24/7, and we do it all with you in mind.
They not like us.
Because WOVU 95.9 FM is like no other media outlet in the world.
They not like us.
WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united, the voice of the people.
They not like us.
The voice of the community.
They not like us.
The pulse of Cleveland.
They not like us.
We are WOVU 95.9 FM.
They not like us.
No other media outlet is like us.
They not like us.
7 years strong and counting.
They not like us. 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 They not like us.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson and my conversation with CocoaWeaponry, who has just let us know that she was a police officer in Detroit for a while. She came to Cleveland and she witnessed a few things, and she is extremely involved in reaching out to young people. And poetry is the passion, poetry is the purpose, and poetry is the platform that she is using to reach these folks. Talk to us about your involvement as a poet. When did that light bulb go on for you?
The light bulb went on when I was about 11. My mom was a secret writer, anonymous, and I didn't like certain things that I saw in school, so I began to fight people just to make things right for the underdog. And my mother's helped me to appreciate a woman of culture she was, even though we lived in the hood, the Lower East Side of Detroit. She made sure that we, as growing up in a 2-parent household, she made sure that we knew both sides of the fence. Alvin Ailey dancing, the Harbinger Dancer, the Judith Jamison Project. We went to stage plays. We would go and collect bottles and cans, and whoever had the most, it would be a competition to have, funds to go to see these things of that nature. So my mother began, you need to write out a script of everything that happened, and I want you to tell me everything and no filter. So I began to do it. So she wanted me to write it in a story form, but she wanted me to also to recite it to her, which was weird to me. So I would stand there and, this would happen. Johnny said this and Keisha said that, and they started to fight and da-da-da-da-da. She was like, so how would you word that? Make it rhyme. Things like that. Never was a teacher. My mother was a registered nurse, grew up in the 5th Ward in New Orleans, Louisiana, the hood again. But however, giving us social skills, teaching us different dynamics and situations to make us productive and to inspire creativity in us as children, which was a very difficult thing. My father worked. He was a professional chef, and he also did manual labor at a steel company. And my father didn't want her to work anymore. We had kids. So we struggled, but that was the dynamic of the house. You don't work, you stay at home, take care of the kids. My mother walked us to school every day. My father cooked when he came home from work. So that was how I grew up and got involved in it. And I started to write about what I saw, what I didn't like, what I did like, and I would put it in rhyming short stories. My younger sister wrote her first book when she was 8. So it's amazing.
Yeah, what's really amazing about that is that your parents created an educational paradigm for you that extended beyond what you were getting at the schools.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Yeah, and as we grew up, those things were taken away from us in school. Art was taken away. Then gym, you could only have gym if you were in alternative sports, which was crazy to me. I never understood it. So I started running track. I ran the decathlon so I could have gym. So it's just those things. But what if a kid doesn't want to take the decathlon? What if they don't want to run track? What if they don't want to get into all of these other studies? They just need the creativity. And through the studies within the Resident Youth Council program, we learned that children were thriving highest in the class after the creative class. If they had gym and then the next class, they would always have an A. If they had art, the next class would always be an A. If they had something else, it would always be an A. Whereas the other classes would be C, D, because it lacked that separation of getting that muscle to moving in different ways so that they can take in the other portion of the education. So that's something that I'm seriously thinking into, just implementing more creative even with the summer youth program that we're heading this summer, we have arts and craft as a part of the summer program. And I have 25 kids already signed up.
Wow. I got to go back to this just because it resonated with me so greatly. When you first started talking about your family, you talked about your mother, and I was wondering, well, what about Dad? And then you told us what Dad did, and Dad, you know, he was old school. You know, Dad was saying, I want you to stay home and take care of these children, and I'm going to provide for you. And it was a struggle, but you look at the effect and the impact of what they did for you, and they created a platform within you way back then.
Yes, indeed.
How would you have ever known that something could be so impactful in terms of the direction that you take in your life and its connection to your life's purpose?
Definitely. And it baffles me how today that the mother of a child has so much say as to how this child is reared. They get into fights and, oh, I want to see my child with the other parent. And that should never be. Even if the person doesn't have exactly what you want them to have, the part where you can't come and see your own child, it took two people to make it. So it should take two people to rear it. Unless there are some outstanding issues that no one else knows about, then yes, there needs to be guidelines and boundaries set, you know, having parental visits with chaperones, things of that nature. However, just because you're upset, the person has moved on, be it a male or a female in that relationship, the child should not have to suffer from not having the structure of that father figure in their home or in their life. Period. A child who does not have the present father figure does fare differently, and they are underprivileged.
Yes.
So having that, I hold that true to heart to be able to say, yeah, my father was very active in my life, and I'm fortunate for that. That was such a blessing from the Almighty. And I do believe in having structure in households, even to this day, even in a marriage. I believe that the wife, you know, according to scripture, she needs to be submissive and have deep respect for her husband. And I know that's a whole nother level, but all of those things play a major role into how you are in society and how you are in community relations.
Yes. Well, when you talk about society, we've seen a paradigm shift. You know, back in the day, during the time of your father and mother, parents stayed married for the sake of the children. And we had one of the highest rates of marriage in the country. I mean, black folks got married and they stayed married. And then you saw kind of the I don't want to say the destruction of the black family, because it's not completely gone. There are some who still have an integrity about family. But when you look at, you know, the numbers, 35% married, not 65% married. And it used to be the exact opposite, you know. So, we had to deal with societal reasons that you've seen this breakdown. And I'm just curious, you know, on your part, being someone who was kind of in social service agency, what do you see as the most significant issues that our children are facing today?
That society enables them to be disobedient, enables them to be rebellious without repercussion, enables them to be without structure. There is a protection that we do give to young persons, rightfully so, if they are in harm and things of that nature. But one person has to understand, as a young person, if this person, be it a single mother household or a single father household, you have to do what they ask you to do within reason. If you need to clean your room, clean your room. Who's paying the bills? The parent. If you have a cellular phone, who's paying that cellular bill? The parent. Why are you going ballistic if they tell you you need to hand it over? You're not paying nor dime nor dollar for it. So then if the authorities get called, well, you took their phone, but it's not their phone because it's on my plan. I paid for it. You see, things of that nature. Those are the things that the accountability needs to be held for within the school system, as well as within the household, within the community. Children, young people, youth need to be held accountable for what they do positive, and they need to be held accountable for what they do negative. No one sheds more light on what they do negative than they do positive, and that should not be.
Yes.
That's something that needs to be addressed. Give accolades and praise where it needs to be. If they're on the road, that needs to be in the community circular. If they've made it to a certain point and the educate, that needs to be in a community circular or broadcast somewhere for free so that they can get the proper support they're needed, so that they can do what it is and be productive citizens. And not only be productive citizens, but also inspire and incite their youth peers. Because now if you have two thriving individuals in the same room, it's going to be electric how they come together in their creativity and their imagination and think of different ways to inspire and continue to do things in betterment of themselves and others. So now if we got 4, the stakes are raised. So let's raise the stakes.
I like that. You know, the whole idea of peer pressure in a positive way, rubbing off on folks and being a stimulus for them to excel. You know, I'm also thinking about the opposite of that. I think one of the reasons that young folk end up in harm's way is because they're not getting the attention that they need, and them doing the crazy stuff is the way that they get attention, but it lands them in places like, you know, the Juvenile Justice Center. And once you get into that, it's hard to make a recovery from that.
Yeah. Institutionalized is something that a lot of communities have victims of. And they get 3 square meals, they're safe. So it's easy to develop that mentality. Well, I ain't got nothing to lose. I've heard that many times. And it saddens me that young people feel that they don't have anything to lose. They have everything to lose. Their vitality, their dignity, their ambition for life and for thriving can be easily so taken away. Guilty by association. They may not directly be involved with all of the things, but here's a little niche of family. Here's some attention that I'm getting. But then what's the downfall, as you just spoke of?
Yes.
It happens, and it's unfortunate.
Well, I think we can look at the reasons why and put the blame on others, but I think we also have to look at ourselves, because we have the ability to make choices to do the right thing or the wrong thing. Just like telling that child that they'll never be anything. They hear you, you know, and then they make that their reality because they're listening to you. You know, the other thing is that whole do as I say and not as I do. The most powerful example is the power of example. And I think that folks, you know, they rely on language as opposed to behavior. And then they are surprised when things turn out the way that they do. I just want to add that there are some environmental factors. For instance, we consume a lot of programming. You know, and sometimes you watch TV shows and children acting out and being smart alecky and all of that is seen as cute. And then folks who are watching those shows internalize that and think that it's okay. And that's one of the other reasons that children act the way they do these days. The way that they're wired with these electronic devices, you take one away and there may be consequences and repercussions for you as someone who is attempting to discipline your child, which you have every right to do. But then if you don't get that right, CPS shows up and takes your child away from you. So
I know
it's a complicated web, and we're not going to solve it today, but we can talk about the things that we can do, and we will.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, this is Open Door with Vince Robinson. I'm speaking with CocoaWeaponry, and we will be right back on Cleveland's Urban Alternative, WOVU.
Finally, a station that represents you, the people. 95.9 FM, WOVU, Cleveland's Urban Alternative.
Represents a good feeling, good vibes, positivity.
At CMSD, we believe in creating access to services, programs, and opportunities. Every day, we strive to provide innovative learning experiences where passions lead to career paths. From trade education to early college courses, the possibilities are profound. empowering every scholar to discover their path and achieve their dreams. The future of CMSD starts here.
This message has been brought to you by Cleveland Metropolitan School District and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Belcar, Community Radio.
Sometimes you gotta pop out and show.
When it comes to media, everybody says they're different. But WOVU 95.9 FM, we don't just say it, we live it.
They not like us.
We are more than a radio station. We are a movement.
They not like us.
A platform for truth, culture, and power. Rooted right here in the heart of Cleveland.
They not like us.
Black owned, black operated, black located. We don't just serve the community. We are the voice of the community.
They not like us.
WOVU is where the mic meets the mission. Where voices rise, stories matter, and change happens.
They not like us.
Unfiltered, unbought, unapologetic. We're local with a global vision.
They not like us.
Mission driven 24/7, and we do it all with you in mind.
They not like us.
Because WOVU 95.9 FM is like no other media outlet in the world.
They not like us.
WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united, the voice of the people.
They not like us.
The voice of the community.
They not like us.
The pulse of Cleveland.
They not like us.
We are WOVU 95.9 FM.
They not like us.
No other media outlet is like us.
They not like us.
7 years strong and counting.
They not like us. 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 They not like us.
We're back. Open Door with Vince Robinson, CocoaWeaponry, the poet, and I'm living, not going to say dying, I'm living to hear about your career as a poet. You mentioned that you've been across the country. Talk to us about your trajectory as a spoken word artist.
My trajectory is giving persons something they don't get. A clean and clear platform is what I stand on. I have sponsors and endorsers for the work that I do. I do not use sexual innuendos, no derogatory comments, no racial slurs, no political alliances, no gender bashing, none of those things. Just raw, authentic, clean, and clear spoken word. And persons can come to any of my events, my shows, my debuts, venues, age 8 to 80, and no one will be offended. And that's an art to hone in on for a lot of artists, because I believe profanity and derogatory comments are filler words.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's just my stand.
Yeah. So talk to us about some of the things that you have done as a poet.
I've written a book called The Meanest Doll Ever, a high heel saga. And it is a book about a doll's life according to a woman. Very interesting concept. I've traveled California, San Francisco, the Bay Area, Chicago, New York, of course, Detroit, Ohio, Baltimore, Philadelphia. All of these different places. My next is going to be Busboy and Poets in Washington. That's a part of my tour this year. Before I return to California, and then I'll be headed to New York, then of course in Detroit in August to head off a writing program. I do writing seminars for young poets and artists as well. And it really shapes you as a person to be able to release and articulate how you're feeling, be it fact or fiction. It could be someone else's story. No one would ever know. It could be your story. No one would ever know, but you deliver it as if it was your own. You make it your own. And to use your words to express yourself and have an interchange of emotion with complete strangers is very, very gratifying.
You talked earlier about your mother and her suggesting to you that you write, and it seemed as though that was a catharsis for you because you like to get in fights and you had all that extra energy. So she said, well, do that instead of that. So you've seen that it works for you, and it seems as though you were seeing that it will work for young folk too.
It does. It does work. When they're able to take what's in their mind, to their eyes, to their ears, down the neck, through the hand to the phalanges, and write it out. You have to think about what you're writing. And it slows down the process of if you're angry or sad. It helps you to think through it. It's very therapeutic. It also keeps you in touch with your emotion. And it also can turn into something very, very spiritual, because now you have introspect and you can begin to allow the Almighty to allow his spirit and all of those wonderful things to control what we can't or they can't.
I'm curious about what you may have seen in terms of differences and similarities in the poet communities that you visit in different places in the country.
There are a lot of differences. When people say, well, what do you mean clean and clear? What is that? That segues into something so much more powerful, because now the artist is challenged to understand, hey, well, will they understand? Will they feel me if I don't use profanity, or if I don't use this derogatory comment, or if I don't use this bashing terminology? And when I tell you, after the seminars, the writing seminars, for those who want to segue into a clean and clear platform, a book called The Must Words is their best friend, because now they're able to have persons to understand in a deeper way, because now they're active listeners versus just looking for the punchline, the woo, oh, okay, wow, you said something that was impactful, a slang or something, but how about taking that slang and using it with a word that hasn't been heard of? So now a person is thinking through the entire journey that you're taking them on through your poetry and spoken word.
And it seems as though you're not necessarily just doing the poem for the applause. You're doing it because you have something to communicate that you want them to leave with.
Definitely. You can look at society, or you can look at the community, or you can look at your circle of friends or a network of persons who are entrepreneurs, and their story tells a story, and then you tell a story, and the inspirations are endless. Creation is a grand inspiration for me. Trees, I wrote xylem. Persons didn't know what xylem was. Xylem is decaying tree. What is your root system like? That's been published online as well, written as well as video. And I flew to Ohio, and because I heard about this wonderful videographer, photographer who does work specifically with artists and models and things of that nature, Canon Shooter. And I brought him, I flew in, had a consultation with him. He saw what I wanted to do. He made it happen. And when I tell you, I've yet to work with any other artist when it comes, a photographer, videographer, when it comes to the body of work that comes with the weight of what I have to say and how I want it to be presented when I let it out. Mm-hmm. Top notch.
Okay. Talk to us about some of the exercises that you might take someone through in a writing workshop.
Writing workshop, we build tiers, and there's 12 stages within the writing seminars. And all of my seminars, I make sure they're on. I have online as well as in person. I do one-on-one in groups as well. What is their purpose for writing? Is it just to get something off their chest? Is it a story to tell? Is there something you want from writing? What your expectations are going to be is what you put into it. So we have to get individualized within the seminars, and it becomes a little personal, but it also becomes very transparent. And the concept of that takes the artist or the persons attending the writing seminars to another level of creativity.
I'm wondering if there is a point at which you are able to observe someone's transition from being someone who's just writing about their issues to someone who is artistic about expressing those thoughts.
Yes, indeed. Often, very often. It's just a matter of support. And a person can take $72,000 and go to school and get the literary art discipline degree. And what does it mean? I have it. I got it. But if you're not sharing it, it doesn't mean a thing. It's just a piece of paper. So you take it and you share with persons. You share and you upbuild and you uplift rather than being solo. There's no fun in that. The fun and the joy, sharing is caring where I come from. That's how I was bred. So now when you see others, you inspire and you support. Watch what happens when you share these things that other persons say, no, they can't have. But you say, oh, yeah, you can have it and you can do it. I'm going to show you how. Changes the whole dynamic of how they look at who they are as an artist. No one can tell you how to write. No one can tell you how to write. Your right is your right to write.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you can be thinking of helping someone with their writing craft, and basically what you're doing is you're teaching them to write the way you write. But writing the way you write is not having their own specific and special voice. So
exactly.
Yeah.
We have to give voice to the voiceless. Yeah. And a lot of the ladies that come to the course, they've lost their voice because of relationships, society, work, whatever the experience was. You give them that back. You can say what you want to say, but you got to know how to say it in a way that will be most impactful. You can yell and scream all you want, but then I'm tuning you out. But if you articulate through the emotion and you take me on that journey with you, then now I'm feeling what you feel. And that's what an artist does. When you look at a painting, you step forward, you step back, you observe, oh, there's a butterfly. Oh, my goodness, I didn't even see the duck over there. Oh, wow, there's a person. So in writing, it has to be the same thing. We're going to, with our ears, we're going to be active listeners. We're tuning in and tuning out of what is pertinent to the final thing. What's going to be the envoy through this? You see, are we using the onomatopoeias? You know, what's the metaphors, the similes, all of these wonderful terminologies. But what do they mean? This is what they mean when you turn that emotion into writing.
I'm curious, just based on what you just said, are you seeing more women involved in, I'm just going to call it the ministry, or are you seeing a balance?
I'm seeing a balance because men of culture, brown men, now they've been given the okay when it's always been okay for them to feel. We did a show in February at the Brown Hoist called Not Afraid to Feel. And when I tell you the brothers showed up and showed out, they gave full-fledged emotion through their poetic compositions. And I was there for the whole ride. The audience was so in tune. They had some brothers, they had audience, they had men and women and some young people in the audience crying because it was raw. And that's what artists are. Artists are raw. But if you want to be raw, how do I be raw? And it's okay. I've created that space for artists to be raw and it be okay for you to just give full-fledged emotion without derogatory comments, without racial slurring, without cussing, without, bashing anybody in any type of way. Just tell me what you feel. Just tell me what you're thinking. And we're going to work through this thought process, be it fact or fiction. And that's the joy of it, because no one knows if it's a true story or if it's a fictitious story. I love that part.
Well, speaking of the Brown Hoist, you have an event coming up on June 29th called She Speaks Success. You want to give us a few moments and share with that?
I would be honored to share that with you. A lot of women in the community are in key positions. And in order for us to be able to know and support, we have to know what's happening. She Speaks Success is a nonprofit organization that I'm partnering with from Baltimore, and she gets women in position, and she has a panelist conversation. They're being brought together for a brunch, and it's centered on mental health, personal care, and the beautiful journey of balancing how they lead being an entrepreneur in the community, parenting, and how that dynamic values them as a person, and then they share those stories, empowering other women in the community, especially women of culture. And then those who are looking to have the support and they're seeking the network, they're able to get that there. So now we're going to highlight what's the self-care program like with a person who is successful? How do I continue to build confidence in a room full of men? You know, how am I navigating through the motherhood and the leadership position that I hold? So now we're going to help them and support them with resources on how to build their business personally, as well as build their business for the community. We have a young lady entrepreneur out of Detroit who's going to come and speak and share. She's a model, New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Atlanta Fashion Week. She's also a model coach for young women, underprivileged young women in the city of Detroit, Miss Taylor Lang. She's also heading the Taylor Lang Change Initiative, which is also a nonprofit to give and gift the young women and young men who don't have the opportunities that others have. And she's going to be there and help women to navigate and balance that. And she also is an advocate for autism. Her son is autistic, and she is heading a program just specifically for that through the nonprofit as well.
Okay, so we're going to give you more details on that when we return, and we'll give you more than you need to know about She Speaks Success right here in Cleveland. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. I'm speaking with CocoaWeaponry on Cleveland's Urban Alternative, 95.9 FM, WOVU. Back in a few.
Attention listeners, WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, is now streaming on iHeartRadio. We are the same community radio station with the same mission. Now with another way to bring you the content you need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can still find us on WOVU.org and still listen to us anywhere on the free WOVU mobile app. Those are not going away, but you can also find us on iHeart.com and on the free iHeartRadio mobile app. However you choose to listen, keep it locked for the latest content as we continue to provide a platform for you, the best audience in the land, right here on WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. I'm speaking with CocoaWeaponry, and we were just talking about a program that's going to happen on June 29th, 2025. The doors will open at 12:45. And it's going to run until 3:30 at the Brown Hoist Ballroom, 4403 St. Clair. And the guest speaker will be Taylor Lang. She's a model, among other things. She has an autistic child. What was your thought process about having her?
My thought process was watching her body of work. I'm looking to be the Region 3 director for Ohio and Detroit, and just looking into and having, eyes and ears in both places. Someone who's really involved with the community, who's very respected and highly esteemed in the body of work that they are doing. And it was a no-brainer to have Miss Lang to be the invited special guest, because she balances and wears many hats as a young woman of culture.
I see. Well, sounds like it's going to be quite an event, and I certainly hope that folks will take note and show up and show out, as they say. You know, you never have too much inspiration these days. We can use all of it that we can get. So
we sure can. And all of the sponsors, they have official sponsors for the She Speaks Success. Words of Art 313 out of Detroit. Be Genuine, the young lady here, she does natural and non-GMO body soaps and oils and fragrance. We have Rose Eden Art, who's a very well accredited artist for different publications. Amani Vines, a young lady in Lakewood, Ohio, just started her own winery and her own bottling. And then we also have the Balloons and Charcuterie by LT. All of these are women in key position, brown women of culture, who need to be supported and who are really doing great things, not just here in Ohio, but abroad.
Yes. Well, again, it's important for us to let folks know that folks are doing these things, because when you look around, when you scan social media, you get this idea that nobody's doing anything about anything, that we're all just sitting around and willing to accept whatever treatment we get, whatever results or non-results we get, and we just move through life in this place of desperation and survival. But when you talk about the types of folks that you just mentioned, it's clear that folks are doing things to make a difference. So I applaud you for doing this and connecting these different cities. I see this Detroit-Cleveland partnership rolling out here, talking about your plans. Tell us about what you have plans to do.
That's the next biggest plan. Also, end of summer, we're putting together the back to school extravaganza for young people. I have challenged the youth as well as the community to come together to support these young people who are going back to school. They deal with so much, for haircuts, hair braiding, for clothes giveaways. We're going to have a couple of esteemed artists that will be performing, and I'm going to have it, of course, at the Brown Hoist. We're going to block the street off, and we're going to have a wonderful time. Notebooks, backpack giveaways, gift certificates, just a joyous time in celebrating the young people going back to school, as well as giving back to the community and those within the community to know how to support these young people and each other.
Yes. Well, again, we are living in a state of perpetual cutbacks. It seems like every year, we happen to eliminate this, eliminate that, cut this, cut that. But at the same time, as I was saying before, people are stepping up. And it just appears to me that we have to do what we have to do to address the issues. We put so much emphasis on education, but then the education doesn't really serve the needs of the students. If they go through 12, 13 years of school and they don't know how to balance a checkbook or, create an investment or, the other things that are important in terms of financial literacy, some may call it financial therapy. We don't get that. So we have to do other things because the system that we have now, it seems to be what we talked about earlier, and I didn't put it in these words, but the pipeline from public schools to prison. I mean, that confrontation that the woman had with the police officer when she was sleeping in her car, he said something about child protective services. So you're saying to this woman who lost her relationship, she lost her job, she doesn't have any family, but she has a child, and you want to take the child away from her. And what happens when the child gets taken away is that they become wards of the state, and that it just increases the possibility that they might end up in an institution somewhere. So it's like this whole system is stacked against us. And so if we don't act, if we don't create rites of passage programs, for instance, if we don't do what you're doing to create the cathartic experiences for children who have to be able to express what's going on with them. If we don't do those things, we will continue to get what we've been getting.
That's true. Like I said, it's not going to take one person, but, for the overall wonderful change to come, that comes from the Almighty, and it will come. But until then, we all want to live, in conducive environment and supporting each other. And we can do it. It can be done where we can have some leeway and some segue into the greater good of it all.
Yes. So that brings me to the idea of advocacy. A part of our conversation was Cuyahoga Arts and Culture and the funding that they provide for individual artists and major nonprofits like the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Cleveland Orchestra, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Museum of Contemporary Art. Most of the money that we get from the cigarette tax goes to those larger institutions, and a smaller portion of it goes to the individual artists. I think right now we have to look at dedicating resources to art and culture. In my research, I've discovered that for every dollar spent on art and culture, there's a sevenfold return. So it just seems as though the right thing to do right now is to create funding opportunities for the arts. And I'm not suggesting that you do away with public safety, because it's necessary, it's required. We can accept that. But I think even within that public safety paradigm, just like in the public schools paradigm, if you create an avenue for art to do what art does, you're going to have an impact on both situations. The students, as you pointed out, they will be better students because they have those things. So, yes, we should be thinking of ways that we can implement these things as opposed to taking them away. Do you see any opportunities for advocating for art in our community?
I do. I really do. It starts small, but it can end up big. Talking to the right persons, being in the right rooms and having these conversations, it can make a difference. It's not going to be a turtle process. I guarantee you that, because you have people who have sustenance and who have weight and who have respect of the community and the support of persons who just want to see that one thing implemented, and it can happen.
Yes, absolutely. I'm encouraged now because I think our legislative leaders are beginning to understand the value of what we do as artists, but I don't think that there is the full embrace that we should have right now. And I think it's on a state level, it's on a local level, and of course it's on the federal level. And as we have this conversation, you're seeing funds for the NEA drying up and funds for other situations that create opportunities for cities and counties across the country to benefit from the involvement of arts. But again, we just have to be creative. I'm thinking about the African American Cultural Gardens. There's this magnificent space over in Rockefeller Park, Martin Luther King Boulevard, and you have the African American Cultural Gardens. And this is an idea that's not new. They completed the first phase in 2016. And here it is, 2025, and we're still talking about finishing this project. And we need $2 million. And you would think that $2 million is not impossible. I did some math and I thought, well, we got a population of 300,000, right? Or so. I think it might be pushing 400, but at least 300,000. And half of those folks are us. And I think that there's 20,000 people in this city who got $100 that they could spare. So with 20,000 people, all of whom think that they're important, all of whom know that they're important, just kick in $100 and we can get this thing done. And the beauty of that installation is that it is a cultural place, but it's also an artistic place. So it's got all of those bases covered, and it could use a community effort to make that happen. We can rely on others to do for us, but we can also rely on ourselves. And I think that's really the model that you're expressing in terms of your mission, reaching out to those children, that event that you have planned for the end of the summer. Beautiful thing, but it happens because someone with insight, someone who has a creative mind asks the question, what can we do?
What can we do? And a lot of times I think these big projects don't get finished because persons don't see where it directly affects them. Well, what is it going to do for me if this doesn't get finished or if this gets done? So now you see how these things begin to take a back seat. So you have to keep at the forefront the importance of what project needs to be done and how they or the multitude would benefit from it. And if you keep that, that carrot dangling before them, I think things can change that way.
Yes. Well, the next phase is She Speaks Success, June 29, 2025, 4403 St. Clair. Where can folks go if they want more information about that?
They can go right online to CocoaWeaponry or the Brown Hoist on social media, Instagram and Facebook. And we have all the information there, or they can reach out to me directly. They can send me an email at, do I give it all like right now?
Yeah, you can give it now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they have questions or concerns or want to be a part of and support, It's the number they can reach me is 567-275-1819. That's 567-275-1819, and that's Miss Coco.
All right. Well, there you have it, Miss Coco, with the weapons, and the weapons are words, and the words are very effective. Keep doing what you're doing, sister, because you're definitely making a difference. Thank you for joining me.
It was my honor. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
All right. And to those of you who are listening, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your absolute best day. Peace.